Crusader Kings 3 is a challenging game, filled with tons of random events that are out of your control. Making the game even more difficult, you can turn on Iron Man mode, which prevents you from being able to save scum and locks you into only playing the character you select to start. This also enables it so that you can pursue even more challenging objectives by unlocking achievements. With the launch of Northern Lords, 10 more achievements have been added to the game, some of them very easy and some of them damn near impossible, like the dreaded King of the Isles. In this video today, I want to go over those new achievements and how to best line yourself up for success, or talk about some of the pitfalls of trying to get them. This won't be a play-by-play guide, but more of a general discussion of each, since there's a lot to go through. If you'd like a more detailed guide per achievement, or maybe just the hard ones, please by all means let me know in the comment section below. I'm going to structure this video by first going over how to access achievements and some tricks to seeing if you're on track to getting one. Then go into each achievement added in Northern Lords from easiest to hardest. Feel free to navigate to any of the chapters in the timeline or description if you'd like to skip ahead. As always, if you haven't purchased Northern Lords or any of the games I cover on the channel, please head on over to the Nexus store linked in the pinned comment. It's a great way to support the channel, as well as Patreon, my YouTube memberships, or just simply liking and subscribing, all that jazz. But let's get started on the Northern Lords achievement guide for Crusader Kings 3. So to set us up, let's talk real quick about how to enable achievements, because they're not turned on by default. And it's pretty easy. All you gotta do is click this button right here once you've selected that you want to make a new game. You click Iron Man mode, and there you go. Achievements are now available. Now you can even jump into Character Creator and make your own character to do some of these achievements, and that's actually not a bad idea. It's a pretty good one. But it'll say here, achievements are only unlockable if you play single player, duh. Iron Man mode is enabled, again, duh. Game files that affect gameplay are unmodified. So again, you can't have any mods that change what's called the checksum. And then if you're playing a character made in the ruler designer, it did not exceed the point limit of 400 points. Those things are all you need to worry about. If you want to just press play any ruler in 867, you can. And for the purposes of this video, we'll mainly be focusing on 867 as a starting time and any Norse Asatru character, unless I've stated otherwise. And again, I will state if I'm going to say, hey, this character is, or this achievement is specific to this type of character. So you won't have to worry about missing that. But again, just to kind of look over here at selecting any ruler in 867, we'll select Upland here, and you can see at the lower right corner, Iron Man and achievements are not turned on. You have to click game rules, and then you have to press enable here in Iron Man. And that will turn both on. Press close, and you're done. We're gonna go ahead and press start here, and I'll show you another little cool Iron Man trick. There you go, save over that, that's good. And that's your first save. That save is going to overwrite that save every I think it's every year or every time you shut the game down. So either way, you will never really be able to have a chance to roll back. You're pretty much stuck with any decision that happens. Now, as you're rolling through the game, if you press escape, then go to achievements right here. And again, this is a reminder that telling you Iron Man's on and achievements are available. You press achievements, and it will show you all the achievements in the game categorized from very easy to very hard. And then you can see all the ones you've unlocked, and then you can see possible. So this pretty much tells you the achievements you can actually achieve in this campaign, with all things considered. But let's assume that, let me see, where's a good example of one. Some of these obviously will disappear as you go through the game. Well, I can't really think of one off the top of my head, but essentially, if you get to a point where you don't do an achievement, or you've passed the point of it being able to, like this is a good example right here. If it's 1048 and you didn't get this achievement, it will no longer be in the possible section. So if you can still get the achievement, it will be here. If not, it will obviously just be gone from this section. In hard, it'll say O of 8 because I have progressed past a certain time point that would have enabled me to get this achievement. or I've done a certain couple of actions that have blocked off certain achievements. So this is a real great way to track the achievements you can still achieve in your campaign if you're trying to get specific ones, or try to do a campaign where you're knocking out as many as you can all at once. This is a good way to track all of that. Moving into our first achievement is Völva, or as the Norse call, the name for the witch. And this one's actually pretty seemingly easy. You essentially just have to be any North Germanic Asatru character that then founds a witch coven. And that can be achieved through a number of different ways. You'll sometimes have yearly events that allow you to discover witchcraft through maybe a vassal or even your wife. That should happen pretty frequently, actually. But if you want to actually create this for yourself, you have to maybe choose some lifestyle paths that'll help you. So let's go ahead and look at our lifestyles. And we've got two that will particularly help out with this. First, we can go into learning and we can take the medicine focus. You'll eventually be poised with a challenge, or at least a dilemma, where an herbalist will come to your court to teach you about herbalism. Now, you can tell them to leave, or you can encourage them and say, hey, that's great. Yeah, come on board. Let's dig up some herbs. And that person will eventually, down the line, if you take the proper action of encouraging them, basically, they will teach you witchcraft. Now, the other option here is to go into the scholarship focus. Now, you will, at one point, you'll come across an individual who will just outright teach you witchcraft. They'll come to your court and say, hey, I know all sorts of mystic things that I could possibly teach you. You can either deny them entry into your court, or you can bring them in. They'll become your mentor, or they'll just be a member of your court. And eventually they'll approach you one time in the middle of the night and say, hey, do you want to be a witch, more or less? And I made that sound so unceremonious, but my point is, these two lifestyle focuses will almost guarantee you are faced with the witchcraft decision. And it doesn't matter if you are male or female. The achievement doesn't mind. So you don't have to be a female for this to happen. Any one of these lifestyle focuses plus the yearly event that could possibly happen will guarantee you will get the witchcraft decision in your playthrough. Next achievement to talk about is the first of the Crusader Kings. Now, of course, these two are in the very easy category, so you can almost always be guaranteed to achieve them by just simply playing the game. But this one simply means that you have to be a North Germanic Catholic Crusader. And this is a pretty easy one to achieve. Let's take a look here. The Norse are pretty much your only North Germanic group. These are Balto-Finnic groups, so they're not going to fall into that category. And everything over here, you're starting to get into the Baltic groups, and then into the West Slavic, and then over here, you're going into some of the Central Germanic groups. So Norse is what your character has to be, and they have to convert away from Asatru and into Catholicism. Now, you think that might be difficult. It actually is not. It's quite easy, considering you border tons of Catholic regions in almost all of the North starting locations. And you get a bonus for converting to any religion that borders your own lands or is at least close by. I think there's there's a certain distance that it can be away from you. Like, for example, if you were to start anywhere over here in this portion of Norway or Sweden, Catholicism is close enough that you still get that bonus. Conversely, of course, if you start over here, Catholicism is all over the place, so it is easy to convert to Catholicism. And then you just simply have to wait for the first Catholic crusade to kick off, and you have to join it immediately. You can't stall and say, okay, I'll think about it. You have to just press join, and you will unlock the achievement for First of the Crusader Kings. The next achievement I want to talk about is Saga in Stone. This is the first of our quote-unquote easy achievements, as the game denotes. And this one is actually pretty easy. You just kind of have to play through playing a Norse Asatru character without converting away from Asatru, because that's what allows you to raise the runestone, and you can achieve this one because you have to raise 100 runestones. So let's take a look at the actual decision for raising a runestone. Of course, you get some really nice effects like piety and fame growth, some nice opinion, and 1 of 3 runestones. But the runestone that is being raised is determined by 1 of 3 values. And that is this: at least one of these has been, I don't want to say accomplished, because I don't want to think of having a recently deceased ancestor as being an accomplishment, but one of these has to occur. Recently deceased ancestor, recently conquered territory, or recently gained a rank. And the trick to this is going to take you a long time, because the raise runestone will only be available every 10 years. So if you're trying to raise 100 of these bad boys, it's going to take you'll probably get around 4 or 5 per ruler. And that's around 40 or 50 years, right? So this is really going to take you some time. It doesn't matter what character you're playing. You're just going to have to play a Norse Asatru character for a considerable amount of time to actually get this one to fully unlock. Now, the nice thing is this is all of one dynasty. So this can really kind of expand away from being in just this region if your dynasty expands across the map. But again, you do have to still be Norse Asatru to be able to do the ability to raise a runestone. But again, pretty easy one to accomplish. Just simply play the game for a long period of time and you'll hit this. Our next achievement is a dangerous business. Now this one seems pretty easy on paper, but you do have to kind of line it up. Essentially what has to happen is that you have to be a dwarf that then goes on a successful Varangian adventure. So again, you have to be Norse Asatru to do that. But what you have to really take a look at is the majority of characters that are Norse Asatru start married. So you either have to divorce your wife out the gate when you start the game, or you have to choose a character that's not married. And again, very few of them are. I think this character's not married, and I think this character's not married. I think a couple other ones here and there. Yeah, these guys, just this guy's not married. You can also take a dwarf concubine. That should be just fine. It's just kind of an issue of trying to ensure that you have your primary heir as a dwarf, because you need to play as a dwarf to do this Varangian adventure. And to kind of set this up, let's go ahead and bring up our character browser by pressing C. We've got, I've kind of already pre-done this, but we're going to go through it together real quick. For one, in relation, we're going to choose all. Diplomatic range, we're going to choose inside. We're going to choose an adult. And then you're going to choose the gender opposite to the one you need, right? So if I'm a male character, I'm going to need a female character. And then marital status, unmarried, and we should be good to go. Now up here in filters, you're going to type in dwarf. That's going to give you this trait. Click it, lock it in, and sort this by age probably. You can sort it however you'd like. And you're going to want to select someone to be your wife. And this will hopefully produce a dwarf child that you can then nominate as your primary successor, or hopefully it just is your primary successor. Now, there is no guarantee that it will be a dwarf. More often than not, it is though. When you get dwarf or hunchback or giant, that tends to pass down almost always. The nice thing about this is it's going to make your playthrough pretty interesting. So this might be one that you start a character and do the Varangian adventure and get the achievement and move on. Or maybe you want to create a dwarf empire using the Varangian adventure as you go rummaging through mountains for gold. So whatever it is that you want to do with this character, you have to pretty much first set this up. Once you've married one of these characters, I think this character was not married. No, I'm already married on this character. That's right, yeah. Let's go ahead and press divorce here. That will get rid of her. Find a spouse, go back to age, and we'll just choose anyone. It doesn't really matter here. Arrange that marriage with me. And we have a medium chance of producing a child with a dwarf trait being passed down. Now, obviously right here, this isn't going to happen because we're a different faith. So I didn't even look at that. So it's worth bringing up right now. When you look at the character browser, you probably want to organize this by the religion of Asatru to make it easier to get the marriage proposal going. You might even need to do a little bit of swaying to get them to marry you. And yeah, see, we're still going to need to do a little bit here to kind of tool this and make it happen. So you might have to actually start a romance here or seduce her, or just do a general sway. But doing a romance or seduction should make it so that you can invite this individual into your court, or just they'll have a higher chance to just go through ahead with the marriage. So this is probably the best way to line yourself up to have a dwarf successor that you would then play when this character passes away. Now remember, you are having to do a Varangian adventure though, so it's important your lands don't get too big because you're about to lose all of them with the Varangian adventure itself. So keep those things in mind as you go through trying to pursue this achievement, because I'd honestly say this is not an easy one, it's more of a medium one. Moving into the medium difficulty of achievements, things are going to start getting spicy. Now, these are the first set of achievements that actually have a geographical location as a part of an objective for the achievement. So in order to find out where that is, we're going to go ahead and press escape, go to achievements. I'm going to collapse these to get us to medium, and we're going to go to the bottom of the medium category. We'll see Far From Home. Starting and staying as a North Germanic Asatruan of any kind, have your realm capital on any of the islands in the Indian Ocean region. That is important, by the way. Some of these will say starting and staying, so you have to maintain that in order to actually get this to unlock. So do be mindful of those things. But we'll go ahead and click Island in the Indian Ocean. And my achievements aren't active right now because I'm using this to switch around to characters to talk about things for the video. But again, make sure Iron Man is enabled and achievements are enabled. But you'll see once we click that region, it highlights where our objectives are for this achievement. And this will be true of stuff like King of All the Isles. The next one we're going to talk about in Vladimir's second choice. So these are important to just make sure you've got all of the criteria fulfilled for your achievement, or you're attacking the proper island for an achievement. So any one of these regions will do, and I'll show you a way that you can do this pretty quickly. I know I said I wasn't going to do a play-by-play, but this one's pretty straightforward, and honestly it's a matter of just island hopping your way there. So we're going to start as Count Heston. And the main thing here is with Count Heston, we get Adventurer, which is very nice because he's already a Varangian adventurer. But this allows us to do Varangian adventures at the start of the game because he has enough fame to do so. I believe the default is 2,000, but Heston only requires 1,000 prestige to do his actual Varangian adventure. So we're going to start here in Sardinia. I'm going to right click on them. And we're going to do that adventure. Raise our armies and go ahead and attack this location. Now you could attack Benevento, but I'm saving that for another achievement that we'll talk about in a little bit. So we're going to fast forward here, just go ahead and take this location. I actually recorded this one already, and in the middle of it, Count Heston died. So I had to redo the whole recording. So hopefully he doesn't die in the recording this time. Oh, we've already won this fight, so force demands, boom, done. So disband that army, and we now have Sardinia. Now from here, it's really just a matter of, okay, great, everything's going great. It's just a matter of island hopping your way into the Indian Ocean. So and you really have to take a look at your diplomatic range. It's going to be the limitation of a lot of these achievements, and it's really kind of hard to even theory craft it before you start your game because it's hard to tell where your diplomatic region ends. There are some hard and fast rules, like certain things like, oh, it can't be 2 sea zones away or something like that. And I've heard a lot of different rules, but I can't seem to find a real clear-cut way to determine what is your diplomatic range outside of pressing C, all, inside diplomatic range, and ruler, and then scrolling out and hovering over people until you see where they are on the map. Oh, okay, they're in my diplomatic range, I'll attack. So I wish I had a really cool way to do that for you, but this is just follow this step-by-step guide. So we'll go over here to Crete, go ahead and declare war here, and you can just conquer this duchy, which is nice. You don't even have to do a full-on Varangian adventure. Raise all your armies and just do the same thing. Just rinse and repeat your way into the Indian Ocean. And it's man, things are going pretty crazy over here. I'm now a lunatic. Great to have a kid now. Stuff's going wild. And if you do this quickly, then you'll prevent yourself from overlapping with any of the AI's plans for the regions that you're kind of basically intruding into. And then disband all one more time. And then you're going to do another war for a county right here. And you pretty much get what's going on, right? you'll basically just be hopping your way all the way into the Indian Ocean. And honestly, right after this one, we'll be pretty much good to go. So let that kind of go through. Gonna go ahead and trunce on down into Africa. And I have another kid. And we're all set. Perfect. And enforce these demands. So at this point, all we have to do now is one last conquest, and it's right here. Invade county, declare war, and we're just gonna. Here, we'll fix this right now. Whatever. It'll allow me to exposit while this all goes on. Make sure you set your war target, your rally point closer and closer every time you do this. Okay, so after we do this, we'll pretty much have all the territory we need. We would set our realm capital to this location, and from that point, it would just be a matter of being an Iron Man. You won't see the achievement unlock right here, unfortunately. We'll do that, enforce these demands, and bam, done. Click this location. Press this button to move to realm capital here. And if we were playing on Iron Man, again, this is part of the Indian Ocean, and we would have all that we need. So I'm going to click here. You can see all the land that we've taken on the way in. And just a real quick shout out here to Howling on the subreddit for Crusader Kings. I had actually recorded a whole block of how to do this without even looking at this really cool way of basically doing your first Varangian adventure and then county and duchy conquering right up to it. So huge shout out to Howling into the subreddit who posted a step-by-step guide on how to do this. You can see that little post flash up right here there. But this is the quickest way to just get this in 4 years. It's 870 AD. So we're all done. We're all set. And you should get that achievement unlocked because this is one of the locations in the Indian Ocean you need for Far From Home. Our next one is a pretty big one as well, and it's called Vladimir's Second Choice. This is a reference to Vladimir the Great choosing Orthodoxy Christianity over Islam to convert the state of the Kievan Rus. Now, what you first have to do for this achievement is take all of Russia, because the requirement is that you start as a North Germanic Asatru ruler, and then convert to Islam and convert all of the lands of Russia to Islam. Now, the achievement says Russia, and I assure you it is this actual Empire of Russia, not some sort of weird amalgamation that the achievement needs. So just to click here, again, we'll jump back and you can see it's pretty much the exact portion here of Russia. So you've got two options. I mean, you can start as any of these characters and take over Russia, but the easiest ones to do are Rurikid and, of course, Dyer of Kiev. Dyer's great because he does start with Genius and he is a real great character, but I just think Rurik is set up to really take this over much easier than Dyer. And what you have to really think about is when and how to convert to Islam. It's not as easy as Catholicism. It's further away from you, so it's harder to do. But even if I were to convert here on day 1, January 1st of 867, and if I just select Shari and then convert it to faith, it still only costs 1,800, which is not that difficult or impossible to achieve. So what I would say to do is get as much land conquered towards the objective of the Empire of Russia as you can. If you're playing as Rurik, you can almost create the Empire of Russia title. You don't have to have all of it conquered just yet, but you can get 71 of the 88 counties well within his lifetime alone. And if you do that, you at least have the Empire of Russia to operate under, meaning you won't have your realm split with Confederation because you are tribal. Remember that. So when you're dealing with these large land grabs, you definitely have to consider that your succession is locked into Confederate partition. especially if you move away from being Norse Asatru and you decide to take on being Russian, you lose Scandinavian elective. So it's much harder to transfer your titles from heir to heir. If you get that empire title as fast as possible, you just don't have to worry about kingdoms and duchies. They will probably be created if you're not clever about it, but creating at least the Empire of Russia title means everything falls underneath you and you can work towards your achievement. So once you've actually captured all of Russia, which you will probably do, like I said, in Rurik's lifetime, or at least in the beginning of your successor's lifetime. If it's Helgi, who knows, he might die. He did in my campaign. But from there, the easiest way to go about this is then choosing the lifestyle path of learning and going down theology. The main reason behind this is that when they did the patch version 1.2, you used to simply just convert the vassal that controlled the territory you wanted to convert to your parent religion, and he would automatically convert that territory. It is no longer this way. Going down the theologian tree is really going to help you in converting to Islam, because you have this convert faith and county progress speed increases by 25%, and you get a lot of other really nice bonuses from this. I believe there's one here. The time it takes to convert a county is no longer increased if that faith has higher fervor than your faith, which is also extremely helpful. Church and state helps with realm priest, but profit here is really nice because faith creation reformation cost is reduced by 50%, which you won't really need to worry about, but there's a very specific one I'm looking here for. And all these as a whole will contribute towards helping you in making your jump to Islam much easier, and making it so that your demanding conversion is the barrier is reduced here, right? So other characters are more likely to accept when you demand conversion if you have a higher learning skill. So jumping through that entire learning tree down here increases your learning significantly. And again, it's really going to pay through when you're trying to convert this entire empire. Some things that are going to help outside of that is assigning vassals that are already Islam to those locations. Like I said, it won't convert immediately, but if they're a Norse Islam, they'll at least match culturally to some portions over here. Or if you take a Slavic Islam, they'll match culturally to the locations down here. And you can use that to at least get good popular opinion while your vassal works to convert that populace. And that's going to be the most time-consuming portion of this, much like the Reconquista achievement, where you have to take Hispania and then make sure all of it is converted to Catholicism. It's just a matter of getting the land, getting the empire title, and then once you have that, it's just playing kind of bookkeeper and making sure you get everyone converted to Islam on the vassal level, and they'll start to take care of their counties. And you can convert the counties that are a little bit more problematic, that say, hey, this is problematic, that say, hey, this is going to take 8 years to convert. You can put your own realm priest on that because you get so many buffs from the theologian line. So your second or third heir, whichever one is the one that kind of lines up with your conquering of Russia, is going to be the one that will go down that learning lifestyle tree. So again, just real quick recap: conquer all of Russia first, or at least get to the point where you have the title. Convert to Islam. Hopefully all of your vassals will go with you, so make sure you have positive relation with those vassals. And then it's just a matter of assigning Islamic vassals to regions that do not have Islam as their chief religion, and slowly working with your own realm priest to convert those locations. And that will unlock Vladimir's second choice. All right, this is where stuff really starts to pop off. We're into the hard difficulty achievements, and the first one here I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation of, but Miklagarðaríki is a really, well, it's not necessarily a difficult one, but it's gonna be a very cumbersome one to deal with, because you're gonna have to deal with the constant growing strength of the Byzantine Empire by the time you even get to this achievement. So this achievement requires you to be a Norse Asatru North Germanic ruler, of course. And you can actually kind of piggyback the last one we talked about in Vladimir's second choice if you're already creating the Empire of Russia. So you can just simply piggyback off of this one and push into Thessaly, because that is the requirement. You have to, let's open this up, completely control the Kingdom of Thessalonica and have an empire title that is not the Byzantine Empire, while also being, of course, Norse Asatru. So there is a lot of difficulty there, right? Because just taking a look at Byzantine Empire, they are a powerhouse in 867. If this was 1066, it would be a little bit easier, but it's a little bit harder, obviously, to start as Norse Asatru, since there's no real start point aside from the one character in Sweden. So if we're looking at this in 867, naturally, Bulgaria will have a lot of conflicts with the Byzantine Empire. So you can start as Kiev instead of doing Rurik and just simply move south. You can pop into the empire titles here and take the Carpathian empire title, and that can be your non-Byzantine Empire title that you take. And you can just kind of burn your way down into Thessaly and take it. So that is an option if you want to just simply blitz this achievement. But I still think that taking the Vladimir's second choice achievement and piggybacking it into this other one makes a lot of sense. You're already a pretty large nation if you're playing as Russia, and you should have, if you're playing as Russia, the southern tip of your empire should have diplomatic range into Thessaly. It might be just a little bit short and you need to do some conquering, but if you really think about it, Vladimir's second choice has a lot of passive traits about the achievement. Once you conquer this much land, you don't really have to do much aside from converting. And converting is, like I said, pretty passive, pretty secondary. So you might as well take the time that you're using to convert all of Russia to Islam in conquering further south and get Thessaly. That way you're not kind of wasting time, and you can jump and get both of these achievements at the same time, because they are difficult achievements. They take a long amount of time to work towards. So you might as well have already taken all the massive amount of time you've taken on Russia and just move south and make this really big, huge Islamic swath throughout the center of Eastern Europe here. And I think that's actually a really cool thematic approach to this campaign. If you're saying, okay, hey, my goal is to make the Islamic Kingdom of Russia, or Empire of Russia, and then take Constantinople, or obviously Byzantium here, and convert it to Islam. I think that that's a really, 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 really cool theme that you could operate under to try to knock this one out. But those are the requirements here for this one. And it is, like I said, going to be very time consuming, especially since you can't just simply do a Varangian adventure over into this location and just take it all out from there and create the Byzantine Empire title or usurp it. You can't take that route. You can do a Varangian adventure towards Carpathia if you so wish, if you're starting as Dire. I mean, that's definitely doable. But I think, again, like I've said, like a broken record, doing Rurik and taking Russia and then moving south into Thessaly is probably your best bet to knock out this big, big achievement. Canute the Greater is actually a pretty easy, well, not necessarily easy, but it's at least a more straightforward achievement than the previous two we just talked about. All you simply have to do is achieve the High Kingdom of the North Sea major decision for any real Norse Asatru character. Now, you do have plenty of options to do that as, but I think that there are some that really kind of outshine the others. If you want to do it from a cool historical standpoint, then starting as Harold Fairhair here would be a pretty cool one. You can also do it right now as Halfdan Whiteshirt to really get you a foothold into England. You can do it as Sigurd here to get Denmark secured pretty quickly. You could even do Jylland as well. But it really kind of comes down to how you want to view this decision. So let's look at the major decision really quick and secure the High Kingdom of the North Sea. Now you have to hold the Kingdom of Norway. Let's go ahead and move that right here and zoom out just a little bit. The Kingdom of Norway. Ooh, I'm just going to go ahead and mess that up. So you have to hold the Kingdom of Norway, and you have to hold the Kingdom of England. and then the Kingdom of Denmark. And you have to hold each for 30 years. Now, there is the obvious issue of succession. You are going to deal with that as a tribal ruler, right? You're going to deal with Confederate partition, which is going to divide a lot of your lands up. But the best thing is that you are Norse Asatru, so you have access to the Scandinavian elective. That should lock things at least somewhat into the progression system you have in mind if you don't get these titles secured under one ruler in time. So I think that if you're starting as, let's take a look here. If you're starting as Fairhair, it's easy to eat up a lot of Scandinavia quite quick. Conversely, of course, Jarl Dag is a good one too, because he just gets access to these northern portions very fast. And after you take Norway, remember, Norway also is comprised of the Northern Isles and of Eastland, so you have to get over there and do that action. But then it's a matter of getting England and Denmark. And in my opinion, if you're not starting as Halfdan, then getting England requires England to kind of break up a little bit. And I think by the time you take Norway, just Norway, before you even get to Denmark, England will have fractured into a lot of different pieces. These two will have subsequently done their wars throughout the majority of Northumbria and portions of Mercia and East Anglia. And the Danelaw might pop up, it might not. Mercia and Wessex might fracture. Usually in my campaigns, what I've noticed is both Ivar and Halfdan will take Northumbria in the opening 10 years of the campaign. But I'll also find that they can really carve out big chunks of Mercia, and then they usually kind of lose momentum, they'll lose their special soldiers, and they'll kind of start to fracture. Conversely, England will also have the same result, I've noticed. Typically, Cornwall will become a portion of Wessex, or actually even West Francia, and then Wessex and Mercia themselves will probably split into their individual duchies, which is huge for you, because if that happens, then they're just one duchy conquer away from just gobbling up portions and portions and portions of it. And what I would advise you to do, as you're working on England, create an ally in Alba. If you can stem the tide of Alba's southward expansion and really kind of hit it before he crosses this line of Northumbria, because take a look here, Alba's kingdom title comes into Northumbria, and he'll probably do more wars with Ivar than anyone to try to eat up the lands that Ivar has taken, because Alba more often than not will choose very high or very strong allies in this portion of the map. So if you can get an ally in Alba, Alba should at least hold the northern portion of the UK for you while you take England. Because getting Norway, I think in all honesty, is the easiest part of this challenge, but I think it needs to be done first, because if you don't do it first, you're fighting a lot of little skirmishes in some pretty harsh terrain. And if you can get it when everything's in these small county and duchy portions of the game, it's way easier to deal with. Because once you become Kingdom of Norway, you will probably be able to just slap Sigurd off of his throne in Denmark with Yilin right next to it. And it's really, after that, it's just holding these two plus England for 30 years. And England's going to be your hardest bit, of course. But at least you will have the Northern Isles as your staging point to start summon your army here in Norway and then move south into Alba into England, or take a boat from Orkney down into England as you see fit. So don't let the 30-year portion of the Secure the High Kingdom scare you. You can use the Scandinavian elective if you just kind of do it right. I would say that save the title that you're most afraid of losing with succession as the one that you want to really apply that Scandinavian elective to. It'll take you 1,500 prestige to do so, but it should be very easy to come across that amount of prestige, since you will just be ripping your way through Norway and then further into Denmark after that. So be aware of how you're going to kind of progress that. It's really a matter of just going full military and conquesting all these locations as fast as possible, because doing so will push you into, where is it? It does make you change to feudalism. So you'll be able to lock things in a little bit more after that. You can change your partitions away from Confederate partition just to normal partition alone, and that'll make it way, way easier to hold the kingdom together, especially since all of it will fall under the High King of the North Seas, right? You become the Sea King, and all the North Sea title, all three of those kingdoms become de jure part of it. So it's a really, really, really fun major decision. Our next achievement is Faster Than the Fox, which requires you to be a Norse Sachu character and completely control the Kingdom of Sicily. This is a reference to Robert Guiscard, the character that you can start at in Apulia in 1066. So you only have 180 some odd years to do this, because you have to get it done before 1047 AD. One of the best characters to do it is Count Heston of Montague, since he starts within range of you being able to do a Varangian adventure onto a lot of the locations in this portion of Italy. If this is too far east, you can do over here as well. So what I would say, it's tempting to just go for Sicily. But Sicily itself, they're at war with the Byzantine Empire, which will end that war if you successfully do the Varangian adventure and take it over. But you'll then have to fight the Byzantine Empire for this little portion of land. That's going to be a slog. Keep in mind, though, you are Count Heston, who starts with a total of 3,200 soldiers, because you get these special 3,000 host that are both the Varangian veterans and Huscarls. So they're very, very, very strong. So what I would say is a better, more reliable route to go about this is start your Varangian adventure attacking Benevento. Again, you could go for the papacy, but that invites a lot of aggression from other Catholic nations against you. Just go for Benevento, declare that war, and then when you're choosing your adventure location, choose the Principality of Benevento, the actual center of it. And once you go through this actual war, it is going to make it so that Apulia and Lanciano over here are going to still be Prince Adelchis' locations, his realm. But you'll have this center portion, which has got a lot of levies, which will help fuel your army, because after you take that, you'll be the Duke of Benevento over here. Let's go ahead and switch this over to that location. You'll have this land. Then you take out Naples, and then you take out Salerno. And by doing that, you'll have solidified a nice little power base in Italy. And after that occurs, you really want to see how this conflict plays itself out, because these people are the reconquest of Bari, so Italy is attacking them, and that's going to be quite difficult for them to deal with, but not impossible. And this location is trying to eat up all of Sicily here. So wait until you see how those two locations suss out, right? How they kind of deal with their wars. And hopefully by the time you have got all three of these locations, your truce with Benevento will have ended, and you can speed that process up by making sure you have a counselor with very good foreign affairs, because he will shorten a truce. If he has very high foreign affairs, I believe it's over 15, there shouldn't be any negative possible effects. And on top of it, there's a higher likelihood that he can shorten that truce, allowing you to eat up the rest of his lands quicker and quicker. Because then you'll be able to get the kingdom title here of Sicily, and it should help to solidify your claim a little bit more as you push further and further into these lands. And why you want that kingdom title before you even own all the land is because you are Confederate partition locked for being tribal. And even though I've heard that this guy can get up to the ages of like 90, I think I was talking to Surreal Beliefs, and his character was like 92, and his player heir had already died, and Heston himself had not. So he will live longer because of the version 1.3 patch. So you shouldn't have to worry, but still keep that in mind. You want to at least solidify your claim unless something happens, right? You don't know if he's randomly going to get sick. He's randomly going to die from some sort of event that occurs or some option you've chosen. By getting to a king title and making sure that there are no duchies underneath you that will auto-create because of Confederate partition, you lock yourself into getting closer to the Faster Than the Fox achievement. But really, once you get these 3 lands, you have that power base, and once this conflict and this conflict deal with themselves, you can then choose how you want to progress. This portion, the Salamids here, or the Salamids should conquer the Byzantine Empire, or take out this little portion, and then you should have free reign on Sicily. I've seen Italy almost always win this conflict, so it will be harder to do. But with your staggering amount of troops, Italy isn't that hard of an opponent. So you can actually do a duchy or a conquer on this duchy and take out a lot of the lands that Italy has. So don't be afraid of Italy. Don't be afraid of the bigger nations, because you have enough troops in the beginning to blitz locations and take them up as fast as possible. And then as you grow this power base up here, you should have enough levies to then fill in the troops that you will lose from that 3,000 starting troop location. So that is my advice to knocking out the faster than the fox achievement. Okay, time for the hardest and last of the achievements, King of All the Isles. Now this one was bugged as of patch 1.3, and that has been fixed as of patch 1.3.1 that just came out just a few days ago. A nice hot fix fixed it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the requirements for this, because it's quite a doozy here. So, King of All the Isles, starting and staying as a North Germanic Asatruan of any kind, completely control everything in the islands in the Atlantic and Mediterranean region without ever having over 80 realm size. The bug was that you actually had to go over 80 realm size. Again, this has been fixed, so don't go over 80. Don't read an old Reddit post that says you have to. Wait until you've gotten all the isles and then go over 80 if the achievement still hasn't tripped off for you, because then you'll actually see if it's properly been fixed. I haven't tested it in 1.31, so hopefully it's all good. But we'll click this to take a look at where all these isles are, because there's a lot of them. There's a total of 50 isles you have to take. That means that you only can have 30 regions in your realm that are not these isles. So we're going to start over here in the Mediterranean, and you can see some of these you need little portions of the land too, because it's just part of the region as a whole. But here's all the ones in the Byzantine Empire. You'll need all these, including Malta. You need this right here. And don't forget the Canary Isles. These are the ones that everyone seems to miss out on when they're trying to say, hey, I can't get the achievement, what's going on? These are the ones that people always seem to miss. But then coming up here, you can see quite a bit over here on the west coast of Scotland. You have got the Northern Isles, you've got Iceland, and then as you swing around over here into Norway and Scandinavia, you've got a lot, obviously right here in the center at Denmark, but there's quite a few over here as well. So the easiest way, in my mind, to go about this is starting as Ivar the Boneless, because he gets 1, 2, 3 of the isles right out the gate, and he's right within attacking to a 4th and to a 5th over here at the Isle of Wight, and he can get the Northern Isles very easily, which then will allow him to go up here to Iceland. Now, you can just create Alba as your power base, which would allow you to have a set location that you can say, hey, this is my kingdom, and this is all the land that I'm going to control, because you do get quite a few troops to start off with, right? You get the Ivar's host, which gives you a ton of total troops in 6,000. So this would allow you just to hold the whole northern portion of the English Isles, which is nice. Then you kind of have, like I said, that power base. But it should also keep you in diplomatic range to push over to here, to leapfrog into all of these, including this one right there, and just kind of gobble everything up. Now, the trickiest part is going to be pushing over into this region. It's very far away. Another way to do this is to start as Ivar and do a Varangian adventure. Or even you could start as the Count of Montague, right here as a Heston, as we've talked about plenty of times before. But really the way to do it is that you have to essentially conquer your way into diplomatic range of Venice, which would then give you all the rest of these isles that you can leapfrog and gobble up one at a time. So it is very tricky to get to this portion of the map, but the real trick to this is granting independence. So what you would essentially do is, let's just say, for example, I wanted to get right here, and I didn't have the diplomatic range. I mean, I know this is in diplomatic range, but let's just say it wasn't. what I would do is I would conquer a smaller little county that is just rubbish in size. Well, I get my armies are raised, so I can't do this, but I would declare war here, and I would do a a county conquer, go and take it over. I'm in range of my target objective, and then I go and take that target objective. Then, the previous location, I would then grant independence to. That way, it removes it from your realm, and you don't need to worry about the cap. You've basically leapfrogged that county to get to the location you need to get to so that you can further the isles for your conquest. So what you really want to do, though, is keep an eye on this number. This number right here can never go over 80. If it does, because of 1.3.1, you will not be able to get the achievement. So this is a nice way to kind of lance around the objective 80 without going over it by basically, okay, I'm going to go from 75 to 76 to 77 because I need to jump from one county to the one I need, then remove that one I just jumped to, and you'll just drop to 76 rather than 77. So it's a great way to kind of move around there. And the reason I say Alba as a king title is because you want to secure a king title for yourself. If you secure a king title, then everything will fall underneath you. Your children, if you so happen to inherit, will become dukes underneath you, and you won't have to worry about your kingdom falling apart. You have to completely control them, remember? So if you have some sort of king title, and again, you don't need to get all of this title, you just need enough to get the actual title itself. You don't need all the lands. This keeps your realm together. And on top of it, this is a very small king title. I mean, obviously you could go with Ireland, but Ireland has a lot of regions going against this 80 limit here, right? So you have to be kind of wary of that realm size. So getting the king title here for the Kingdom of Alba is not that hard because you're right on next door to it. And there aren't enough total regions to really hamper you in your total realm. I believe if you wanted to take the entire kingdom of Alba, all this, I believe I counted out to 28 or 29 total regions, but you're not going to go that high. So you can just simply take out Alba right here, have enough to secure a king title, then use this to eat up all of these isles, then all of these over here. And then from there, it's just going to be a matter of leapfrogging, because by the time you've done that, these three should have, one if not all three of them should have fractured into a bunch of smaller little counties and duchies that you can then use to jump into the center of Europe and then down here into Italy. So that should really help you out in trying to do King of all the Isles. Again, make sure you don't forget about the Canary Isles, and don't forget about all the little guys here that just kind of, they blend into the map, or they're a little bit harder to see, because you do need these. If you haven't gotten them, make sure to double check, go to achievements, go to the bottom, click this, and just make sure, double, triple check that you actually have gotten everything. And then let me know if you get it, if you run into an issue where, hey, I'm under 80, I've got all these isles, it should work. But this should help you in getting King of all the Isles. At that, it brings our video here to a close. This is a pretty difficult set of achievements. Some people have really learned how to blitz them, like for example the Far From Home achievement, which you can really do quickly by doing that initial Varangian adventure and then just doing your conquerings all the way into the Indian Ocean. And some of these are really, you're in it for the long haul, right? Like Vladimir's second choice, you have to control all of Russia. So go ahead and let me know in the comment section below which ones you maybe are struggling the most with, or which ones, hey, I read your, or I watched your video and this is how I approach this one, and it's way easier than what you're talking about. I am all for as much information being out to the people as possible. So please, please, please disseminate that as you see fit. And if you'd like me to start doing specific play-by-play achievement guides, guys, by all means, let me know in the comment section. I've never done something like that, so I'm happy to do it as just more kind of guide content for Crusader Kings 3. But we will be continuing our romp through our Uhtred of Bebbanba campaign on the live stream, so don't forget to check in Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, all that fun action. But have a good one and take care.